In other pieces of work, I have recognized that there exists a huge difference between talking about religious matters and talking religiously. And there exists the same distinction, I have showed it elsewhere, between talking about political states of affairs and talking politically. In both cases, the adverbs captures completely different movement than the substantive. You may add 100 times the word God to a sermon and yet fail to carry even the beginning of what it is to speak in a religious fashion. You may complain about all the political issues of a time and yet not even start to make the political circle move in such a way as to generate a body politic. Speaking religiously requires the present conversion of the speaker as well as those he or she addresses, a feat rarely seen those days, when sermons are confused with expressing absolute certainty about some faraway spiritual matters. Speaking politically means that you are ready to abandon your own certainty about issues so as to produce a subtle alchemy between what you say, representation, and what you are told to do, obedience, the autonomy and tautology. A feat utterly distinct from the lazy way in which we must often do issues dropping, as in names dropping. I propose to say that the same is true in the matter of organizing. There is a huge and abyssal difference between speaking about an organization and talking or acting, I apologize, quite a mouthful, organizationally. The first reason for this difference is that in the thick of being an organizer, it's utterly impossible to distinguish organization and disorganization, and that's, of course, very well known. The state of crisis where you catch up and patch up one script after the other is the normal state of affairs. They might not all lead to a crisis meeting in the council room and to soul-searching inquiries as to what Emilio Bootme really wanted. But there are crises all the same for a very simple reason. That is directly linked to the definition of scripts. They all have variable deadlines, some of them, so that even in the best of time, at any given moment, some may require you to shift from being now under them to being now over them, while at the same time you are still under many other scripts and are ready to launch still more other new ones. So even when everything works according to plan, chaos follows necessary from the many roles you have to fulfill: playwright, actor, characters, rewriter, shadow writer, props, accessory, stage, curtain, all at once. But this normal state of chaos is always compounded by the fact that since there is no such a thing as a superorganism, most, if not all, of the script will be at worst contradictory and at best ambiguous or incomplete. Remember Wittgenstein's demonstration that it's impossible to make a rule completely explicit. It would already be bad enough to have to answer many different scripts with different endpoints in different capacity. But in addition, you have to deal with incompatible instructions that are targeting many possibly opposite persons in you, some utterly impossible. And War and Peace by Tolstoy is a better case. And I say that not because I'm in a very badly organized school, which is also true, unfortunately. To put it in less dramatic terms and to take stock of the obvious fact that the field of battle is not always littered, as in Tolstoy, with dead bodies, I will say that to organize is always to reorganize. The little prefix re is there to remind us of a gap that is always yawning at us between time t and time t plus 1, and that no substance will ever allow us to jump above it without pain. Between organizing and reorganizing, there is the same difference as between substance and subsistence. A secular description of organization should be careful to avoid the false transcendence of superorganism, but just as careful to avoid ignoring that tiny little transcendence, this little cleft through which any organization should, so to speak, gain in subsistence. To act organizationally, horrible word, is to situate oneself at this growth point. That's where lies the obstacle over which the horse should jump. Either you recognize it and you act as an organizer, or you don't, and then you simply talk about organization. What have I achieved tonight? 3 things. First, I've reminded you that organizing shares with all other actual occasions the same general pattern. To use again Whitehead's term, what lasts, the essence of a school, is generated by what does not last, the constant work of taking it up again. This is a completely anti-structuralist argument, as you know. But it's just the paradox that is missed by supposing the pre-existence of a macro actor. To use this marvelous English intransitive verb, organization, obtain. Second, much like so many of you here, I've shifted attention from a dead alley, organization as sui generis meta or macro entity, inside which social theorists always try to put the little puzzled, limited human actors as if they were another doll in another Russian doll, to a very different phenomenon, a fully flattened process of circulation of script. If you take the organization for a big animal, this instrumentarium is irrelevant. But if you know there is no big organization to begin with, then this instrumentarium is the only thing there is to trace and thus to track organization, indeed to produce them. Third, I've pointed out that whatever concept we use to follow the task of organizing, it's essential to check whether they can register this strange flip-flopping that is their main feature. We live sequentially and not simultaneously under and above those sets of instruction as if we were walking on a tightrope while being attached to it. Well, where do we go from here? Time is now too short, and my chairman, with an eye fixed on his watch, is showing signs of growing impatience, but it would surely be worthwhile to draw the felicity and infelicity condition of this highly specific mode of existence. Austin terms is especially useful here, since, as François Coren has shown, many of these examples, that is Austin, when they are not coming from law, are actually coming from organizational speech act. It would be also, as Barbara reminded you, very useful not to confuse organizations and the theory of organization with organization theory. She said it. I skipped that part. What I would really have liked to pursue, however, is the fascinating consequence this definition of organization would entail for organism in general, including biological organism. It's not without consequence that Whitehead's label for his major work has been a philosophy of organisms. Remember that when we turn toward Emilio Bootme bust, one of us alluded to what dictate, as he put it, the DNA of our school. A metaphor, I know, a rather crude borrowing from the highly contested field of molecular biology. But that's just the point. When we appeal to the DNA of an institution, we believe that we designate a substance, a genetic blueprint, another metaphor, which is just as assured, stable, and predictive as that of a DNA directing the programs in the cells of organisms. What is fascinating when one considers the biological literature is, on the contrary, how badly predictive the DNA blueprint is, of which protein will be encoded and which